Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, today we will be studying remaining part of the our main topic, quantitative genetics. And in today's lecture, we will be covering uh, heritability. And under the heading of heritability, we will look at phenotypic variance, the types of heritability, calculations of heritability, limitations of heritability, locating genes that affect quantitative traits, and then under the heading of response to selection, we will cover predicting the response to selection, then limits to selection response, and correlated responses. So, first of all, what is heritability? So, we already know that in addition to being polygenic, quantitative traits are frequently influenced by environmental factors. So, it is often very useful to know that how much of the variation in a quantitative characteristic is due to genetic differences and how much is due to the environmental differences, and the proportions and the proportion of the total phenotypic variance that is due to genetic differences is known as the heritability. So, when we have a proportion of the phenotypic variation, that is because of the genetic difference. So, phenotype is in the case of quantitative traits, phenotype is the effect of genetic as well as environmental differences, and uh, the part of that phenotypic total phenotypic variation, that is because of the genetic differences, because of the different genotypes, is known as the heritability. So, before going into the detail, let us have a look at the example of milk cows that are owned by a farmer. A farmer has different number of cows, and they are milk producing cows, and farmer notices that some cows are producing more milk than the other cows, and the nature of these differences is important uh, to the profitability of the dairy. So if the differences in milk production are largely because of the genetic differences, then the farmer may be able to increase the milk production by selectively producing the cows that are producing more milk. So, on the other hand, uh, if the differences are because of the environmental differences, so the farmer's selective breeding will have a very small effect on the milk production, and the farmer might be uh, looking for a better milk production, and and he can do this by just adjusting the environmental factors which are associated with the more yield of the milk. So, to determine the extent of genetic and environmental influence on variation in a characteristic, the phenotypic variation in the characteristic must be partitioned into components attributable to the different factors. So, now coming towards the phenotypic variance. So, to determine that how much of phenotypic differences in a population is due to the genetic and environmental factor, uh, we must first have some quantitative measures of the phenotype, because without this we cannot proceed further. So consider a population of wild plants, for example, they differ in size, and we could collect a representative sample of plants from the population, weigh each plant in the sample, and then calculate the mean and variance of the plant weight. So this phenotypic variance is represented by VP, and this phenotypic variance has three components: genetic variance, environmental variance, and genetic environmental interaction variance. So the phenotypic variance, which represents the phenotypic differences among individual members of a group, it can be attributed to several factors. And first, some of the differences in phenotype uh, are due to the differences in genotypes among different individuals of the population. So these differences are uh, termed as the genetic variance, and environmental variance includes differences that can be attributed to specific environmental factors, and such as the amount of light or water that the plant receives, and it also includes the random differences in development that cannot be attributed to any specific factor. So any variation in phenotype that is not inherited is a part of the environmental variance. So the third one is the genetic environmental interaction variance, and it arises when the effect of a gene depends on the specific environment in which it is found. So in summary, the total phenotypic variance can be uh, apportioned into three different components, and these components are Vg, Ve, and Vge. So these three components contribute to the phenotypic variance. So now coming towards the components of genetic variance. So genetic variance can be further divided into components consisting of different types of genetic effects. And first one is the additive genetic variance, and it comprises the genetic variance comprises the additive effect of genes on the phenotype, which can be added or summed to find the overall effect on the phenotype. So the additive genetic variance. For example, if we have a plant, and allele one allele is contributing 2 gram of weight, and allele 2 is contributing 4 gram of the weight. So if the alleles are strictly additive in nature, then the genotype uh, will contribute genotypes will contribute different weights. For example, if allele 1 and allele 1 are present, homozygously present, so it will contribute 2 2 grams, and weight will be 4 gram. And when plant will be heterozygous, then weight will be 6 grams. And when allele 2 is homozygously present, then weight will be 8 gram. So uh, this is known as the additive genetic variance. And second one is the dominance genetic variance, and is represented by Vd. So there is uh, in the in the case of dominance genetic variance, the alleles at a locus are not additive. Rather, the effect of an allele depends on the identity of the other allele at that locus. And in this case, we cannot simply add the effects of the alleles together. And instead of adding the effects, we must add a component VD to the genetic variance to account for the ways that alleles interact. And uh, the third one is the genetic interaction variance. And in this case, genes at different loci interact in the same way that allele at the same locus uh, interact. So when this genetic interaction occurs, the effect of genes are not additive, and we need a third component, and that third component is known as the genetic interaction, uh, genic interaction variance or genetic interaction variance. So then uh, Vg becomes equal to Va plus Vd and plus Vi. So now we can integrate these three components into one equation to represent all the potential contributions to the phenotypic variance. So putting the value of this Vg into the equation, previous equation. So Vp is equal to Va plus Vd plus Vi plus Ve plus Vge. So this equation provides us a model that is describing the potential causes of differences that we observe among individual phenotypes. So if we know these, then we can easily calculate the uh, phenotypic variance. So it is important to note that this model deals very strictly with the observable differences in the phenotypes among individual members of a population, and it says nothing about the absolute value uh, of the characteristic or about the underlying genotypes that produce these differences. So now coming towards the types of heritability. So the model of phenotypic variance that we have just developed can be used to address the questions of how much of the phenotypic is variance in a characteristic is due to genetic differences. So first one is broad sense heritability, and it represents the proportion of phenotypic variance that is due to the genetic variance and is calculated by dividing the genetic variance by the phenotypic variance. So when we divide the genetic variance with the phenotypic variance, we can get the broad sense heritability, and it is indicated by capital H square. And often we are more interested in the proportion of the phenotypic variance that results from the additive genetic variance, because the additive genetic variance primarily determines the resemblance between parents and the offsprings. And second type of heritability is uh, narrow sense heritability. So when we are interested in uh, resemblance between parents and offsprings, then we need narrow sense heritability, and it is equal to the additive genetic variance divided by the phenotypic variance. So when Va is divided by Vp, then we get the narrow sense heritability, because we are mostly interested in finding the narrow sense heritability. So now coming towards the calculation of heritability. So heritability by uh, elimination, first method is heritability by uh, elimination of variance components. So one way of calculating the broad sense heritability is to eliminate one of the variance components. So uh, we can calculate the uh, heritability by removing um, some of the components of variance. So for example, uh, if we have we want to eliminate uh, because we know that Vp is equal to Vg plus Ve plus Vge, and if we eliminate all environmental variance, so then it means that Ve will be 0. Then our Vge is equal to 0, because if Vg or Ve is 0, no genetic environmental interaction can be there, and in that case Vp will be equal to Vg. So we might make Ve equal to 0 by ensuring that all individuals were raised in exactly the same environment. But in practice, it is virtually impossible. So instead, we can make Vg equal to 0, and this can be done by raising genetically identical individuals, and in this case, Vp uh, will be equal to Ve, because Vg is equal to 0. So in a typical experiment, we should raise cloned or highly inbred identically homozygous individuals in a well defined environment and measure their phenotypic variance to estimate VE. So we could then raise a group of genetically variable individuals, and in this way we can measure their phenotypic variance. So using the VE, which has been calculated on the genetically identical individuals, now we can obtain the genetic variance of the variable individuals by subtraction. So Vg of genetically varying individuals is equal to the Vp of genetically varying individuals minus Ve of genetically identical individuals. And the broad sense heritability of the genetically variable individuals can also be calculated by dividing Vg of genetically varying individuals by Vp of genetically varying individuals. And second method is heritability by parent offspring regression. And in this method, uh, heritability is estimated, and we compare the phenotypes of the parents and offsprings. So in the case of regression method, when uh, coefficient of regression is equal to uh, 0, then heritability will also be 0, and it means that there is no uh, resemblance between the uh, parents and offsprings. So when this coefficient of regression is equal to 1, heritability, narrow sense heritability is also equal to 1, and this regression line is indicating that both are strongly associated. Both parental and offspring phenotypes have a strong uh, association. But when B is equal to 0.5, it is also indicating a positive association, but it is less than the second case. So in this way, we can uh, find the heritability of uh, narrow sense heritability of individuals. Uh, Now coming towards the next method, and next method is heritability and degree of relatedness, and this third method is used to calculate the heritability, and uh, we can compare the phenotypes of individuals having different degrees of relatedness. So this method is based on the concept that more closely related two individuals are, the more genes they have in common. So, for example, monozygotic or identical twins have 100% of their genes that are common. Whereas in the case of dizygotic or non-identical twins, they have on average 50% of their genes in common. So if genes are important in determining variability in a characteristic, then monozygotic twins should be more similar in a particular characteristic than the dizygotic twin, because they have 100% identical genes, or 100% genes in common. So by using the correlation to compare the phenotype of monozygotic and dizygotic twins, we can estimate the broad sense heritability by using this formula. So uh, broad sense heritability is equal to 2 into correlation of monozygotic twins minus correlation of dizygotic twins. So now coming towards the limitations of the heritability. So there are some limitations of the heritability also. So knowledge of the heritability has a great practical value because it allows us to statistically predict the phenotypes of offsprings on the basis of their parents' phenotype. So we are interested in knowing this thing, that we can how we can predict the phenotype of offspring when we know the phenotype of parents. So in spite of its importance, the heritability is frequently misunderstood, and heritability does not actually provide information about individuals' genes or environmental factors that are controlling the uh, development of a character or trait, and it says nothing about the nature of differences between different groups. So, first limitation is heritability does not indicate the degree to which a characteristic is generally determined. And second one is an individual does not have heritability. So these are just estimates. We do not have a heritability which we can assign to an individual. And third one is there is no universal heritability for a characteristic. These are statistical estimates, not exact heritability. It can be assigned to a characteristic or trait. And number four is even when heritability is high, environmental factors are still there that may influence a characteristic. So we cannot control the environment totally. So heritabilities indicate nothing about the nature of population differences in a characteristic. So these are just estimates, statistical estimates, which we can use to predict the phenotype. but we cannot have exact things for the individual as well as population differences or differences among different groups. So these are the limitations of heritability. So now coming towards the locating genes that affect the quantitative trait. So we know that genes that control polygenic traits are referred to as quantitative trait loci or QTLs. And although quantitative genetics have made important contributions to basic biology and to plant and animal breeding, the inability to identify QTLs as well as to measure their individual effects has severely limited the application of quantitative genetic methods. And how we can map the genes or loci for quantitative traits. So in the recent years, uh, numerous genetic markers have been identified and have been mapped with the use of recombinant DNA techniques, and which has made it possible to identify QTLs by linkage analysis. So the underlying idea is very simple. If the inheritance of a genetic marker is associated consistently with the inheritance of a particular characteristic, for example, the height of a plant, so then that marker must be linked to the QTL that is affecting the height. So there are different methods to map the QTLs, and during mapping of the QTLs, uh, the uh, mostly used method is to produce different varieties, different pure breeds, and then by producing the pure breeds, scientists identify different quantitative trait loci by crossing homozygous varieties, and the resulting F1 progeny are then further intercrossed to allow the genes, they intercross and then backcross to find uh, uh, different QTLs, because during the meiosis, different genes are recombining through independent assortment. So genes on different chromosomes and genes that are far apart on the same chromosome, we already know that they will recombine freely, and genes that are very close together, they are very closely linked, will be inherited together. So the offsprings are measured for one or more quantitative traits at the same time, and they are genotyped for numerous genetic markers that span the whole genome, and any correlation between the inheritance of a particular marker allele and a quantitative phenotype indicates that uh, a QTL is linked to that specific marker. So if enough markers are available, it is possible to detect, uh, virtually it is possible to detect all the QTLs that are involved in affecting a characteristic. And by using this approach, scientists have identified various characteristics in several plants as well as animal species, uh, different QTLs, which are uh, affecting different loci. So now coming towards the response to selection, uh, we know that evolution is a genetic change, and several different forces are potentially capable of producing evolution. And Charles Darwin was the first person who proposed the idea of natural selection in his book The Origin of Species, very long ago in 1859. So natural selection arises through the differential reproduction of individuals with different genotypes, and it allows individuals with certain genotypes to produce more offsprings than the other. So natural selection is one of the most important of the forces that brings about evolutionary change. So natural selection is one of the forces which is involved in bringing the evolutionary changes. But we will discuss this in our next lectures about this. So now we have just a few things to study about it. So now coming towards the response to selection. Sorry. And for the natural selection, we have a few observations. So first observation is that many more individuals are produced each generation than are capable of surviving long enough to reproduce. And second observation is that there is much phenotypic variation within natural populations. And third one is that some phenotypic variation is heritable. In the terminology of quantitative genetics, some of the phenotypic variations in these characteristics is due to genetic variation, and these characteristics have heritability. And individuals with certain characteristics that are called adaptive traits survive and reproduce than others, better than others. So because the adaptive traits are heritable, offsprings will tend to resemble their parents with regard to these traits, these heritable traits. And then there will be more individuals with these adaptive traits in the next generation. And thus, adaptive traits will tend to increase in the population through time. So now, how response to selection can be predicted? So whenever a quantitative characteristic is subjected to natural or artificial selection, it will increase with the passage of time, and provided that there is genetic variation for that characteristic is that characteristic in the population. So the extent to which a characteristic subjected to selection changes in one generation is known as the response to selection. So for example, suppose that the average cow in a dairy herd produces 80 liters of milk per week, and a farmer selects for increased milk production by breeding the highest milk producers. He is breeding cows that are producing more milk, and the progeny of these selected cows produce 100 liters of milk per week on average. So, what will be the response to selection? 100 minus 80 is equal to 20 liter per week. 20 liter per week is the response to selection. Uh, that he selected cows uh, that are producing 80 liters per week, 80 liters of milk per week, and the progeny of those cows is now producing 100 liters of milk per week, and the difference between these two is response to selection. So the response to selection uh, depends on the phenotypic difference of the individuals that are selected as parents. So this phenotypic difference is measured by the selection differential, and selection differential is defined as the difference between the mean phenotype of the selected parents and the mean phenotype of the original population. So these two differences are when difference between these two averages is calculated, it is selection differential. So if the average milk production of the original herd is 80 liters and the farmer breeds cows with an average milk production of 120 liters, then the selection differential will be 40 liters. Subtract these two and 40 liter is now the selection differential. So the response to selection uh, depends on the narrow sense heritability and the selection differential. So these things are involved in selection to response. So R is equal to uh, h square, h small h square into s. So this equation R is equal to h square into s. This equation can be used to predict the magnitude of change in the characteristic when a given selection differential is applied. So we can rearrange this equation to calculate the narrow sense heritability. H square is equal to R divided by S. So the H square can be calculated by conducting a response to selection experiment. So first the selection differential is obtained. Selection differential is calculated by subtracting the population mean from the mean of selected parents. So this is the selection differential. So the selected parents are then interbred and the mean phenotype of their offspring is measured. So the difference between the mean of the offspring and that of the initial population is the response to selection. So which can be used with the selection differential to estimate the heritability. And heritability determined by a response to selection experiment is usually termed as the realized heritability. So when we calculate the heritability by using this response to selection method, it is realized heritability. If certain assumptions are met, the realized heritability is identical with the narrow sense heritability. So in a long-term response to selection experiment, selection for oil content in corn increased oil content in one line to about 20%. So if we look at this figure also, in a corn species, when they selected for oil content, so it increased by 20% from 5% this baseline to almost 20%. And in another line, the selection experiment totally eliminated the uh, oil content. So this after several generations in one line, it the oil selection of oil content uh, was almost zero, and in the other line it was almost 20%. So it is better to cultivate the if we need more oil content in the corn, then this line is having difference from the original from the parental population. And limits to selection response. So when a characteristic has been selected for many generations, the response eventually levels off, and the characteristic no longer responds to selection. So a potential reason for this leveling off is that the genetic variation in the population may be exhausted at some point. All the individuals At some point, all the individuals in the population have become homozygous for alleles that encode the selected trait. So when there is no more additive genetic variation available, heritability equals to 0, becomes equal to 0, and no further response to selection can occur. So for example, in this fly, number of bristles are present, and when this fly is grown for several generations, this selection line becomes straight. So when there are no more genes available that are homozygous, then there will be no further selection, and uh, there will be no more room available for breeding for more generations to give more response. So this is the limit to uh, response, and then uh, coming towards the correlated responses. Two or more characteristics are often correlated, and for example, human height and weight exhibit a positive correlation. Tall people on the average weigh more than the short people. This correlation is a phenotypic correlation because the association is between two phenotypes of the same person. So and phenotypic correlations may be due to environmental or genetic correlations, and environmental correlations refer to two or more characteristics that are influenced by the same environmental factor. And moisture, for example, moisture availability, for example, may affect both the size of the plant and the number of the seeds produced by the plants. And plants growing in environments with lots of water or large and produce many seeds, whereas plants growing in environments with limited water are small and have limited number of seeds. So, and alternatively, a phenotypic correlation may result from a genetic correlation. So which means that the genes affecting two characteristics are associated. The primary genetic cause of the phenotypic correlation is pleiotropy. We already know the what is pleiotropy, so which is due to the effect of one gene on two or more characteristics. And when speaking, genetically speaking, height and hand size are the same characteristics because they are the uh, phenotypic manifestation of a single set of genes. And when two characteristics are influenced by the same gene, they are genetically correlated. For example, sometimes when a desirable trait is selected, and there are genes associated with linked with those desirable traits, and those genes are coding for an undesirable trait, then it becomes very difficult to select for those desirable traits. And there are several examples in this regard. So it is enough for today's lecture, and we will discuss this in our QA session during our online meeting. So if you have any question, please come prepared. So thank you.